Talk about courage. Oh my goodness. I'm just getting, Reverend Jackson, this is a moment in time that we will all remember and all celebrate as we proceed to the convention in a couple of days. Is everyone comfortable up here? Do you need water? Everybody? Okay. So while we're waiting Santita to come, I'm going to get the program started. And I also want to recognize Chinta Strasburg, who's been a part of the Rainbow family for decades and who's always here. Chinta, thank you for all that you do. So as we approach, you majestic ladies, as we approach the Democratic National Convention, where we will do and make history with Vice President Kamala Harris, just going down the line, can you just share with this audience what that means to you? Yes.
Well, first and foremost, I thank God that I'm in a room with such amazing, strong mujeres, women. Give a round of applause to yourself. I'm so excited because just recently we elected the first woman in history in Mexico, and now we're ready to elect a second woman here in the United States, a black woman born of immigrant parents. So I am so excited, and we all should be. And all I can say is, watch out, world, because we're coming. And you know what they say? We always demanded a seat at the table, us women, because if we ain't at the seat at the table, we on the menu. So we're not going to be on the menu. We're going to be making the decisions. Amen.
Hey, amen.
I am Ayanna Dixon, UAW Ford, representing them. What this means to me as we lead up into the DNC is what the next generation of leaders look like. And I'm just gonna piggyback off what you said. Shirley Chisholm said that if they don't give us a seat at the table, bring a chair. And so I am insisting that young people take on the charge to come out and vote. Even if you think that your candidate is problematic, just go back in history if you want to find a reason to vote. Do it for George Lee, who was lynched in 1955 for registering people to vote. Okay. Do it for July Perry, who was lynched in the state of Georgia for trying to get people to vote. There's so many. Lamar Smith. Do it and speak their names while you go to the polls, because what I believe is that they say what's to come is better than what's been. But I'm finding that to be subjective these days, because what's to come can be worse than what's been if we don't pay attention to Project 2025, as the congressman spoke of. And there's a new ceiling and it's not the sky.
And so we're going to hear from the incomparable Barbara Arnwine, but I want to recognize the chair of Transformative Justice Coalition, Daryl Jones, who's sitting right here. Okay. Stand up, Daryl. Again, Rainbow Push, these are our partners. They're in the field and standing on the shoulders. We all stand on the shoulders of Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson, you see. But they are there every day, nationwide, making a difference. Barbara Arnwine, the founder and president of Transformative Justice Coalition, and iconic voting rights activist, lawyer, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What do you say?
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Woo! I mean, this is a day of days. I am so glad to be here in this moment. Thank you, amazing, our attorney for the transformative justice, C.K. Hoffler. Thank you for everything. I went through this whipsaw, right? All of a sudden we looked up and we saw on national news, the news that Biden had resigned, was not going to run for office. And people were like, what? What? Then 30 minutes later, he endorses Kamala Harris. And the whole world changed. In fact, change is so bad that right now, people don't know what to do. They're so confused. They are talking about, oh, well, probably she's not black. Oh, yeah, we'll use that line. Oh, yeah. You know, the stereotype of, women are always low IQ. Yeah, we'll try that line. They tried every line they could, but guess what? It doesn't stick. Because we know in this moment what the fight is about. We understand how democracy itself is on the line. We will not stop. So I was so grateful, CK and Janice and so many others, to be part of that first call of the 44,000. We fought to get on that call, didn't we, my sisters? Yes. And when we finally got there, it was like coming home. We heard the echoes in our racial memory, the echoes in our women and our womanhood. We heard Harriet Tubman saying, "Go forth, my sisters." We heard Mary Turner in Georgia hanging from that bridge saying, "One day there'll be justice." Oh, yes, we heard, and we knew that this was our moment to shine, our moment to do the work. So every one of you out there who is Big Mama, get ready, because we need some Big Mama energy right now to bring this home. Thank you.
Y'all see what I'm saying? And I think we have to really, really properly, we talked about Janice Mathis, but Janice, please tell us what you're doing now as the executive director of one of our oldest, most traditional, powerful organizations in the world for women.
After 25 years or so in the Jesse Jackson School of Leadership, the National Council of NegroWomen was looking for an executive director. And I got a call from somebody at the Coca-Cola Company, who you know, CK.
Yes.
Would you move to Washington, D.C.? Well, I had commuted from Athens, Georgia to Chicago, working 6 days a week, going home trying to do math homework on the fax machine, flying home to see basketball games and fly right back. When I found out that it was Mary McLeod Bethune and Dorothy Heights organization that was calling, you couldn't say no.
Absolutely.
So that's how I got to where I am today. But let me say a word about Kamala Harris. I met her over a decade ago. Yes. And you could tell she was the real deal. But what impressed me the most was that she had a vision for what the country then should look like, and she was trying to enact it at that time in California. That justice for all ought to mean just that, justice for all. And so now when I think about it, I think about my mother, who was a proud graduate of North Carolina A&T. Aggie Pride. I had more blue and gold clothes by the time I was 12, and disappointed her and went to Duke. I don't know if she ever got over it. But the point of it was that you knew that there was a destiny coming. Yes. You knew that one day the nation would look like California. You knew that one day Georgia would turn blue. I used to argue with the DNC about investing money in Georgia, because how do you ever expect it to change if you don't support candidacies in the Deep South? And so, in the words of the national anthem, I've come to a place for which my fathers and mothers sighed. We knew it was coming, but we didn't know how and we didn't know when, and I'm privileged just to be a part of it. So what we have to do now, though, is the work. Yes. Jonathan talked about Project 2025, and I guess we'll get into that later, so I won't do that now.
Right.
I won't do that now. But Project 2025 is handwriting on the wall.
Yes.
Yes.
Project 2025 is a real thing, and we'll talk about it in more detail. But we're just going to do the work. We're going to register voters. We're going to raise money. We're going to get on phone calls. We're going to do everything Barbara tells us to do to get this vote out. And then, you know what? Win, lose, or draw, the country will never be the same, exactly the same again. And that's the way progress gets made.
So, ladies, I'm going to throw out 5 areas, 5 topics that are on the minds of women in this country, I believe. And if I don't hit something that's important to you or you feel you want to talk about, you just add in what you want to add in. Because this is a policy summit. Women's reproductive rights, or the destruction of our ability to determine our reproductive rights. Immigration reform, criminal justice reform, voting rights, and Project 2025. You all are well-versed speakers. I would like each of you to pick a topic, let's just say and a half. And this is based on a survey of what's important, we believe, to women in today's environment. And I'd like you to address one of those topics, if you would, in this panel discussion. And we'll start with Janice Mathis.
Well, let me start where I left off with Project 2025. I have one sibling who's 15 months younger than I am, and together we call ourselves the sisters-in-law, the other sisters-in-law. And we do a little podcast, we have fun on Facebook, and we've been deconstructing Project 2025 in 30-minute segments every Sunday night at 5 o'clock so that the gibberish that is written in can be made more plain to our folk. And let me say, you don't have to read, Jonathan, all 992 pages to get the gist of it. There are some major themes that run throughout Project 2025. One of them is accumulation of power to the presidency, moving as much power and decision-making authority as possible to the White House. The other is the destruction of expertise. Throughout the document, you get if you read between the lines, Barbara, you know, when you're reading the law, you gotta read not only for what they write, but for what they mean. They're incident after instance, we don't need these civil servants. We want political appointees. That means they didn't take the civil service exam. That means they don't know nothing except they're loyal. And they even talk about loyalty to the president. The other thing is they don't miss an opportunity to make economic gains for the private industry, whether you're talking about aerospace industry, whether you're talking about finance, whether it's education, whether it's housing. Throughout the document is woven this theme of we're gonna make it easier for our boys to make money. The other thing is we're gonna get rid of the civil service. We're gonna now be clear, 18% of the federal civil servants are African Americans. You are 13% of the population. So when people start talking about getting rid of and reducing the size, and if I knew the Spanish numbers, I would say those, I imagine they're similar. When you start talking about reducing the size of the civil service, you're talking about cutting black folks' jobs. Right. So those are some of, and then let's ignore the needs of the needy and the poor. We're going to make it more expensive to buy houses. We're going to increase mortgage insurance premiums. We're going to cut the length of money. Now, if you raise the mortgage insurance premium and you shorten the length of the mortgage from 30 years to 20, does that make it harder? Come on, economists, help me out, Glenda. Does that make it easier or harder for somebody to finance a home? Harder. All throughout her her tenure as Secretary of HUD, Marsha Fudge talked about we don't have enough public housing. Right. We don't have enough public housing. First, one of the first things they'll do is cap no more public housing to be built. If people are homeless, experiencing homelessness, they need to call on the charitable organizations in their communities to provide housing. Those are the themes, so you don't have to read all 992 pages. Read it if you like. Watch our little podcast if you like. But that's what it's all about.
And when someone tells you who they are, believe them. First time. Just believe it. Okay, so now I'm going to turn to Reverend Lozano.
Thank you.
What do you say?
Well, since there's so many choices to pick from, I'm going to first say, on all of these choices, we all have to be on voters registration, okay? So all of us have to be on that and also getting out to vote. But I'd like to talk a little bit about the immigrant rights movement. First and foremost, yo soy Emma Lozano, yo soy 100% mexicana. That means I'm 100% Mexicana. And I make no apologies for that because half of the United States was originally Mexico. Okay? And I can read off the states starting from Colorado, Nevada, California, Wyoming, parts of Kansas and Oklahoma, Nuevo Mexico, Texas. Those were all parts of Mexico. Now how can I be illegal or my family in the country that we originated from? So that is why we are struggling very, very hard. But we understand another thing. There's a labor shortage in this country. That means there's way more jobs than there are people to fill them. But what we're seeing today is that we have some Confederate governors that are sending refugees to the blue states to cause chaos. If you really wanted to fill those jobs, why don't you send those folks where the jobs are open and necessary? They're playing us right now. So therefore, we need to be intelligent. Recently, there was a fight for workers' permits and parole because we found that it was possible because so many Ukrainians came in, and then after the U.S. stopped the war in Afghanistan, all of the Afghanis, tens of thousands of them, hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians came to the country without a peep. But then we have to remember that it was Donald Trump that put sanctions on the country of Venezuela. Venezuela has the largest, richest oil reserve in the world. They have no reason to have to come here. But when you put sanctions, they cannot trade with other countries. Therefore, a family that was originally making $800 a month after Donald Trump's sanctions was making $2 a month. So they were forced into economic chaos and poverty. Por eso vienen. That's why they come. They would not come otherwise. So we need to remove those sanctions so people could stay in their countries of origin. That's what we want that to happen. And we need to respect the people here and their resources that they hard work for. You know, we know that there's white supremacy. That's why we, the Rainbow Coalition, right? And we're fighting for our rights to be here because we do everything with love. We don't have, our motivation is not hate or exclusion. But don't take what we fought for so long and just give it away to somebody else. We're holding on to what we got, and we're going to fight for más, more, and more. So I'm telling you, my sisters, we need you to be our allies as we continue to help our candidates to do the right thing around immigration rights for the people, especially for the people of color. We want you to help us to convince them to continue to open parole and workers' permits for all. And I will have to speak, too, that Palestine must be free. Thank you.
So, Barbara Arnwine, I know you can talk on all of these topics, but there are some things that I think you preach and preach and preach and spread your word. So what do you say about these issues?
Well, let's talk about some voting rights, okay? Daryl Jones and I, we were late to the luncheon because we went to pick up some pamphlets to pass out for this event. And you should have, it was on the back table, the 72 forms of voter suppression, which is an incredibly important pamphlet because the voter suppression that our people are facing right now every day as they're preparing to vote for the 2024 election is real. It's real. How many people here are from Alabama? All right now, what about Ohio? What about Georgia? How many of you are from Florida? Texas. Come on now. Tennessee, Kentucky. South Carolina. Virginia. Louisiana. Come on now. Let me be very clear. They're not the only states. Wisconsin's got issues. Indiana's got some issues. We got problems everywhere in this country where people are rising up and using voter suppression to try to stop the inevitable conclusion in this country as we people of color become more numerous and more dominant. But they don't want to share political power. They want to keep it all white, all male as much as possible. And if you're a woman, you better be one of them kind of weird women who don't understand about women, who don't feel like they have any loyalty to women. So I want us to understand that they have this whole agenda where the only blacks that can be allowed are those who will stand up and talk about there's no racial problem in America. Come on. So what's going on right now is that in these states, in Georgia, what are they doing, people? At this very moment, they have created what's called a D-list. A D-list. A D-list, meaning that people can call in, give a name, a driver's license number, and they will take you off the voter registration roll. Did you hear me? Take you off. They have created in Georgia right now a system where one person can challenge an unlimited number of voters by saying that they shouldn't be allowed to vote. They don't have to present any evidence whatsoever about why that person shouldn't be allowed to vote. Do you realize that right now as we sit here in Cobb County, a person has challenged 30,000 people. One person. Another person in another county has challenged 50,000 people. They don't know who these people are. All they know is that they come from predominantly black zip codes. Folks, we got to understand that this battle, as enthusiastic and as in love as we all are with the opportunity to vote, that there are people actively working to block that. Our job, we got two jobs. One is to protect everybody we know. Do you know that when I was in Georgia last time, Janice, Mathis, and I, Lord have mercy, we've held our backs together in so many battles, right? All right now, because that's what we were made for. We were made for this moment, right? I mean, God saw all of us, and this moment coming, it said, you are going to be I'm going to rise you up to meet this moment. So what we got to do is that we got to get out there, and those sisters and brothers who are fighting to just have an absentee ballot, we got to help to the degree that we can. We got to make sure that the black elderly have rides to the polls. Come on now. I had so many people stopping me when I was in Georgia saying, would you just give me a ride to the polls? Come on, we got to do this. We got to make sure that this whole campaign that's being waged right now is telling our young people that it's uncool to vote. They have put millions of dollars into this. Millions. And have these people have these quote about AI generated, quote, black people telling folks not to vote, paying actors telling people not to vote, telling our folks that it's uncool to vote, that if they're nerds if they vote, that they're no good if they vote, that they're fools if they vote. We got to get out there and say the most powerful weapon you got in your arsenal is your ability to vote. Exercise it. That's why TJC is so happy, the Transformative Justice Coalition, to train 100 amazing young Gen Z and young millennial leaders every year. Every year. Some of them are here in this room. We're so happy that we're able to do that because the power, do you realize right now that the largest voting cohort in the country is 18 to 35 years of age? The largest. But we need us to give every encouragement, every point of love, everything we can for young people to vote. SB 1 in Ohio is similarity, I'm sorry, in Alabama, and a similar initiative in Ohio, is telling people that if they want to vote, if they want to get an absentee ballot because they can't go to the polls, that they can't even have you, a friend. They can't have a grandchild. They can't have anybody helping them to take their ballot, even to walk it from their bed to the mailbox. If they do, what happens? They go to jail.
Craziness.
That's what I'm talking about, people. That's the battle that's at hand. That's the battle that we know how to fight and we can win. So that's the first thing. The second thing is I passed out this pamphlet, Protect Our Vote, because this fight is not just about one election. This fight is about securing our democracy. And in here you're going to find how you can help pass democracy-securing legislation, Freedom to Vote Act, John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act, Native American Voting Rights Act, and D.C. statehood. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I have got to recognize Alex and the Accione team who prepared the food, who served the food, who are responsible for us eating and enjoying and being nourished, because we have to be nourished in our tummies to be able to receive the word from this magnificent panel. So we want to thank you, Alex, and your team, and want to acknowledge you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank
You know, what's the address, Youssef? What's Accione Bistro? 1500 East 55th Street. Magnificent. We go there a lot of times at Rainbow Push, and we thank you. Let's give them another round of applause. Okay. So thus far, we've heard about 20, whatever that project is. We've heard about the immigration issue. We've heard about voting. But you know, there was a time in life where there would never be a union representative who was a black woman. Hello. So now we need to hear from Ayanna Dixon, the UAW union official. I don't know if you know about the history. To have her sitting here, this is one of the things, the opening of the doors that Reverend Jackson always preached. He was the union, the importance of union. So I had it to just, but it's really true. We got to talk about history, Ayanna. So what do you say? What are your issues you want to highlight?
A couple of things I want to say, because I am a recipient of the Look to the Future program through Operation Push from the age of 14. That's about 30 years ago, without telling my age. So I've been at Push all of my life watching Reverend Jackson do the work. And he's taught us that Dr. King says that civil rights and labor union rights are not inseparable projects. These things are married to each other. And that those rights that we're fighting for every day need to make sure they merge and that they're not against each other. But I do want to address the union and the labor worker as it relates to Project 2025. So you've got this billion-dollar industry who's going to be, of course, supportive of their candidate, who says that they can cut overtime for any worker and it won't be against the law. There's a large population of labor and union workers who now have to live off overtime. They can't buy a pack of bacon or a carton of eggs. And they're making what should be a livable wage, but with the cost of inflation, they won't even meet the mark. And so Project 2025 says you can even cut them shorter so they make even less money. We've got a local 3212, Dakota, on strike right now, standing a little bit east of 126th Street, have been put out of work, and scabs have been legally brought in to do their job, so they're out on the streets. And these billion-dollar corporations that we labor for have no heartbeat, because they see them standing on the corner asking for fair wages, asking for job security, asking for them to restore the pension for the auto worker. And they turn their backs and they say no. While we build their futures, they cut our futures in half. They don't care about not even just the auto worker, but any of the labor worker who's working and using their bodies to do jobs, hurting themselves, going into their elderly years immobile because they've done the work on the jobs to pay for their children to not have to use their bodies, but to use their brains to make a good living. They care more about their shareholders or their stakeholders than they care about the people who actually do the work. Those who build the cars, the teachers' unions, the nurses' unions, the casino unions. They don't care about the workers. Project 2025 is about to give them leverage like you've never seen before. So we've got to vote because of that. My position on criminal justice reform is simple. If a 34-plus convicted felon can run for the highest office in the land, then you gonna tell me little folks on the corner can't get a job at the grocery store, making $15 an hour to give him a chance. And then they turn around and pump this nonsense that Kamala has locked up more black men, but then they omit the fact that she did the reentry program to make sure they get a second chance. And so Reverend Jackson has always been an advocate for redemption, and he's run in the middle, in between us on strike last year at UAW against the big three. But they don't care to give jobs to those who have felons. But once again, I can have 34 plus felonies and run this entire world and make all the decisions. And that's problematic for us because the labor in the auto industry and more are armed with mostly African Americans. It's just as you said. They're trying to take us back 400 years. We won't go back. We won't go back. We won't go back. They want us to do all the heavy lifting and the work on our back, pay us little money, so they want to take us back to picking cotton. Well, they cheat us on the amount of cotton we picked. When they get ready to weigh up and give us less, keep us in debt to them for the rest of our lives until somebody's willing to buy us off from them. So that's my position for the auto worker. We ain't going back.
All right. Okay, so we are not going back. So we're going to have to bring this panel to a close because we're going to bring up Dr. Glenda Glover, but I want you all to know each of these women, they're so stellar. In 20 seconds or less, call to action, starting with you. 30 seconds or less.
Yes, I'm going to just teach you this. Sí se puede. Yes, we can.
Yes,
Sí
we
se
can.
puede. Sí se puede. Sí se puede. Sí se puede.
I'm going to give you just as the iconic Barack Obama said, yes, we can. Yes, we will. Yes, as the Bible says, yes, we shall. Yes, we can. And when the Bible talks about shall, it means, oh, it's coming to pass. So not yes, we can, but yes, we shall. Yes, we shall. Yes, we shall.
Attorney Arnwine?
Yes. Join us. Join us around the country, Rainbow Push, AFT, all of the mighty groups that will be working together to make sure that there is a vote turnout of unprecedented numbers. We're going to be that, aren't we, my sisters? We're going to make this happen. That's the power of women. Oh, yes, and we're not going to ever stop. So be sure to go to tjcoalition.org and join us because we're coming all around the country doing concerts, doing voter turnout. Got that John Lewis bus. Got all these freedom riders. We coming. We coming. Let's do this.
I feel like I'm in church. Janice, Mathis, we're going to close out the panel with you.
I don't think there's much more to be said. But there is a lot more to do.
Yes.
Everyone in this room has a network. Everyone in this room has some organization. Everyone in this room has a cause that they care about. Use your influence. Use your connections, your family, your beauticians, the people who you pay insurance premiums to and car notes to, and say to them, we're going to vote.
That's right.
We're going to vote.
Yes.
We are going to vote because,
Yes.
in the words of somebody around here, we're going to keep hope alive.
Well, thank you to each of you all. We love you. Thank you for what you do in our communities. Thank you so much. So now I'm calling on the incomparable Santita Jackson, who's going to introduce and say some words about Dr. Glenda Glover. Dr. Glenda Glover. She said she's going to be short. Okay, but Dr. Glenda Glover. And then after that, I'll come back on, and I'm going to introduce our keynote speaker, Fani, District Attorney Fani Willis.
Are you all having a good time? Are you having, put your hands together, everybody. Reverend Jeanette Wilson. Reverend Jeanette Wilson. I want to extend her the honor of, well, those of us who are members of the Divine Nine, we're all sisters and brothers, amen? But the joy is, I want your soror, who's helped to run this organization, I want her to come forward to introduce you. But I can tell you from my heart that you are my hero. You're my heroine. I thank you for leading us. You know, she said, I'm retired now. I said, educators are like pastors. Your teachers never retire. And we thank God for you, Dr. Glover. Come on, give it up for everybody. Please get Jeanette Wilson, touch her, because she had wanted to introduce Dr. Glover. But you know, well, she's out there, but you know what? I can do that, because I'm going to tell you something. We are watching, as we watch DEI, the destruction of that, as we watch the destruction of affirmative action in higher education, we're going to see, and we are seeing, an attack on our HBCUs. Our land-grant colleges are owed between 16 and 17 billion with a B dollars right now. They are being forced to do more with less. We are going to see our HBCUs become PWIs. They are removing the presidents, they are removing the boards, and we must fight back. There is no way that you should have someone as qualified as Dr. Glover not be the head of the Department of Education. There is no way that you insult her, and we need to have an insult level. Red, yellow, black, brown, and white. This is not right. There is no way that we should allow her, as Congressman Jonathan Jackson said, to be insulted, to be assaulted. Someone who cares for our children. When I went to Howard University, Dr. James Cheek was the president. He said, we are Howard, we are not Harvard. We are Howard, we are not Harvard. Do not judge me by who I bring in, judge me by who I produce. That is what our black schools do. They took a hunk of coal named Reggie Lewis, then Harvard got him. University of Illinois took a hunk of coal named Jesse Jackson, spat him out, but then an HBCU, North Carolina A&T, saw his potential and sent him out into the world. You can just keep on going and going and going, and that is what this woman has done. So you put your hands together, because you would not be able to do anything without someone who taught you to read. You would not be able to do anything without a teacher who saw something in you, the genius in you that someone else refused to see. Some people can only see your hijab. Some people can only see your afro. And there's nothing wrong with that. But someone like Dr. Glover sees it and wants you to see it as a mark of pride. She sees your genius and she pulls it out. So I want you to put your hands together and let us thank her for her service as we bring this great educator, this great woman of God forward. Come on, everybody, get on your hands. And the AKAs can say something too, but on behalf of Delta Sigma Theta, I say, ooh, ooh, ski.
Thank you thank you, Sister Santita, for that introduction, for bringing me on in that manner. I really appreciate it. To Reverend Jackson and to the other leaders who are here, to Reverend Jeanette Wilson, to Congressman Jonathan Jackson, I mentioned Sister Santita, to Chair CK, and to all of you, to Judge Mathis. You don't know how my husband and I watch you all day, all night on several stations. It's such a privilege to be here today and to be asked to be the keynote speaker as we magnify the power of Black women, the voting power, the economic power, the educational power, the collective power of Black women. So we're here today to thank you to the fearless all women who have been on that battlefield for justice and who remain in that fight, the fearful fight, the fearless fight for fairness. And though we've broken down many barriers, we stand here with several freedoms still in jeopardy. We're still fighting for women's rights and civil rights and educational rights and economic rights. And it all comes down to one thing, November 5th. Voter engagement, voter education, voter registration, voter mobilization. We will work hard to get that vote out. And we're determined to fight to the bitter end to ensure that every vote is counted and every vote is protected. If ever there was a time that we needed women working together, that time is now. If ever there was a time that we needed each other, that time is now. As women, we have to stop and acknowledge that God has brought us a long way. Since we first arrived here in 1619, over 400 years ago. We have been doing a lot in 400 years, but 400 years ought to be enough. 400 years, that's long enough to fight for economic justice and educational parity. 400 years, that's long enough to fight for voting rights. It's long enough to fight for women's health care and our rights to exercise domain and authority over our own anatomy, the interior and the exterior bodies that we own. So we will remain on the battlefield and we will survive, because we are surviving people. We are surviving women in spite of those challenges. We've endured 246 years of slavery, legal segregation, Jim Crow, 5,000 lynchings, and not one single indictment. So be not dismayed, whatever betide. We are called to a higher purpose. We have a consequential election coming up in 2.5 months. We all have a role. Some of us will make speeches. Some of us will direct others to get out to vote. Some of us will contribute money. Some of us will mobilize and drive people around. Some of us will take people to the polls to vote. Others will show some student how to complete an absentee ballot. Some of us will do a sermon. Somebody will write a speech. Somebody will sing a song. Use whatever talent God gave you. You may not be able to lead like Reverend Jackson. You may not be able to sing like an angel. You may not be able to write like Paul. But you have a talent that you can use. You can encourage to get up, get out, get in, get to that voting poll. And we will remain in prayer because God is moving in our direction. And I think all the prayer partners should call for a day of prayer. All the prayer partners should call for a day of fasting because we serve a faithful God. Great is your faithfulness. Morning by morning, new mercies we see. It's time to vote and get others out to vote. That's our role. We're reminded that we are now the torch bearers. That torch has been passed to us, to you. We cannot let that flame go out because too much of a price has been paid. Too much. We've been through too much. Young people, including young women, started this movement, and it's up to all of us to keep it going. We have to still carry that torch. There are too many challenges that lie ahead. The academic challenges, the education challenges are real. HBCU underfunding is real. Yes. Economic inequity still exists. Environmental discrimination has to be watched. Criminal injustice, we're still fighting. The right to vote, the right to live in a safe climate, the right not to live under the threat of Project 2025, where they see women without rights and without respect. The right to health care, the right for women to control their very own bodies. So you can see, we can't let that flame go out. Not only have we been through too much, there's too much more to fight for. We gather because we know the power of our voice. We gather because we know the power of our vote. We have to encourage everyone we know to vote because we have work to do. We must do the work. We said it several times today. You must do the work. Why? Let me share some statistics. 25% of African Americans live in poverty. 27 million Americans are unemployed, and 14% of African Americans are unemployed. 1 out of every 5 African Americans is uninsured. 1 million African Americans are incarcerated. In fact, African Americans are incarcerated at a rate more than 5 times the rate of whites. Too much violence still exists. 70 people are killed each day from gun violence. 1.5 million people have been killed since Dr. King was assassinated in 1968. 11,000 black folk killed each other in 2020. We've got work to do. I'm amazed at the other party. There are those who want to give pity to billionaires and inflict more pain on the poor. Never in history has so much money been spent to resist equality. That's why we stand up. That's why we energize our families. We tell our neighbors to go out and vote. Our neighbors, our sorority members, our fraternity brothers, church members, our friends and our enemies, go out and vote in this election. We have to improve our voting mobilization, increase those numbers. 30 million African Americans eligible to vote, and yet 11 million did not vote. 50% of Christians are not even registered to vote. That is an embarrassment to God. The right to vote is not just a constitutional matter, but a right that was born out of a struggle, out of sacrifice, and a gift from the God of justice, who 2,600 years ago had his prophets say to every nation, you must do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly before your God. The least of these must be the center of public policy. That's why we gather here today. We have work to do. And I commend the Rainbow Push. I commend our legislators who consistently stand up for democracy. Then I applaud our president and vice president of these United States. And as a CPA and economist, I commend the administration for what they did for the gains in this economy. Because corporate profits are at record highs, totaling $3.4 trillion in the fourth quarter of last year, 2023. The country has added an average of 225,000 jobs per month. Unemployment is at 4.3%. The dollar is still strong mainly because of the strength of the economy. The stock market is up, inflation is falling, the deficit is declining, and because of the economy, the wealthy are still making astonishing amounts of money. So I commend the president and the vice president for digging us out and bringing us back. And I thank the various groups and organizations that are working on the battlefield for justice. And I thank God for the Divine Nine. If you remember the Divine Nine, just raise your hand. We thank God for you because this is a new model for sororities and fraternities. They fight for social justice and for equal access, equal opportunity. Divine Nine is a collective organization of the 4 black sororities and the 5 black fraternities. The Divine Nine is 12 million members strong, 1.2 million members strong. They're financially independent. You know, they're a membership organization, take care of themselves. They don't go to to the government or some big company with a handout, asking for a handout. They take care of themselves. They have financial freedom. And when you're free financially, you are free indeed. And I served as the immediate past president, international president of Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority. So I know the divine line is working. They will help to ensure that every vote is counted and protected, and the election schemes do not decide this election. This is where we're headed. We're approaching a new season. I heard somebody in the media say that this new team they brought joy back to this election. And so that tells me we got many good days ahead. Yes, we have some good days ahead, because God has a way of turning bad days into good days. Because all of our days are not in yet. God always puts a problem in front of a blessing. We ought to know his pattern. If you have a problem over here, you have a blessing over there. You ought to know there's a blessing over there to counteract that problem. You close the door here, open a door there. Lose a job here, another job there. Lose a house here, another house there. Repossess a car here, another car there. He always puts a problem in front of a blessing. So somebody asks, are you having a bad day? You can't say you're having a bad day, because all our days are not in yet. There are more days to serve, more days to praise, more days to work, more days to elect a new president. There was a story about how to be thankful for your days. On day one, there was an invalid sick father with Alzheimer's disease who lived alone. He wandered away from the house. On day two, that same house was robbed, and it was burned to the ground. The man was not there. All of our days are not in yet. On day one, when I was in middle school, one of our family members got shot in the leg first. Day two, they wanted him to go into the military. He didn't have to go because the leg was no good in the army. All of our days are not in yet. Day one, the car was stolen. Day two, insurance policy kicked in. Got a brand new car. All of our days are not in yet. Day one, you got laid off from a job. Day two, got another job, making much more money. All of our days are not in yet. God has a way of turning bad days into good days. These bad remarks that you hear in the media during this election, God would all turn around in 2.5 months. Anybody here can do some spiritual calculations and see your good days outnumber your bad days. Your ups are more than your downs. Your ins are more than your outs. Your highs are more than your lows. The blessings outweigh your burdens. The triumphs outweigh your tears. Hope outweighs despair. Faith outweighs fears. And mercy outweighs your misery. And we have been blessed by the power of God. And because God has been so good to us, we owe him a praise. And I'm the first to admit that I owe him a praise. He took a girl from poverty-stricken Fields Road in South Memphis and made her the president of Tennessee State University. I owe him a praise. And we will stand firm through all this adversity. And I'll close by sharing with you a conversation that I had after I'd been serving as president of Tennessee State for a short period of time. And I hope it serves to encourage somebody today, because somebody came to me at TSU and said, President Glover, you know your honeymoon at TSU is over. They're really going to come after you now, so don't expect any more positive publicity. Your enemies are going to come after you now. They're already asking, how are you going to be the president of TSU and the president of AKA at the same time? And they still ask that. They're going to come after you. And so I told them 3 things. Number 1, I'm tougher than I look. Tough times don't last, but tough people do. Number 2, I'm well aware of fake friends and real enemies. And number 3, And most important, I know the Lord has a calling on my life. He's called each of us for this season. We must go out and do the work. We can't worry about those who criticize, because you know, if we're standing on top of the mountain and our critics are standing on flat land, their trajectory, their vision cannot be the same as ours. So don't worry about what they're saying to discourage us, judge, criticize us, even talk about that candidate. Remember, God holds the future. I don't proclaim to know the future. You don't proclaim to know the future. No, I don't know what the future holds, but I do know who holds the future. I don't proclaim to know what tomorrow holds, but I do know who holds tomorrow. The song says, I don't know about tomorrow. I just live from day to day. I don't borrow from the sunshine because the skies might turn to gray. With God, things just don't happen. Everything by him is planned. So as I face tomorrow with his problems large and small, I trust the God of miracles and give to him my all. I know who holds the future, and I know who holds my hand. Yes, there are times that many things I don't know about tomorrow, that I don't seem to understand. But I know who holds tomorrow. I know who holds tomorrow, and I know who holds my hand. God bless each of you, and God bless this Rainbow Push Coalition.
Oh, come on, everybody. Give it up for Dr. Glenda Glover. Let us hear from yet another magnificent woman of God. Everybody put your hands together once again for Kim Stratton.
That was such a powerful word. Jehovah, Jehovah Shammah, I know God is with me, there to supply every last one of my needs. Oh God, for you've been more than enough. Can I get a witness? Way much more than enough. You have been more than enough for you and for me. Oh, my Jireh, y'all know it. My provider, you are more than, oh yeah, more than enough. I call him Jehovah. You are poor was by his stripes I have set free. You are Jehovah Shammah. God is with me, there to supply every one of my needs. Time after time after time after time after time after time after time, you keep proving to me that you are the God that's more than enough for you and me. It's all right to put those hands together and give him some praise. Jehovah, my provider. Woo! You are
every last, every last, every last, every one of my needs. God keeps on making ways out of no way. He keeps on opening up doors. He keeps on doing not just enough, but the God that's more than enough. All the way up until November 5th, he's gonna be more than good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over and over, over and over, over and over, over and over. More than enough, more than enough, more than enough, more than enough. As you walk into the polling place, more than. As you cast your ballot, more than enough, more than enough. Kamala Harris gonna have more than enough votes. More than enough, more than enough, more than enough, more than enough, more than enough. He'll be more. He'll be more than. I wish I had some witnesses in this room. Somebody say more than for you and for me. Somebody ought to give him some praise. Somebody ought to give him some praise. Somebody ought to give him the praise. See, you have to praise God in advance. We're not waiting till November 5th, but we're going to praise him now. We wait for the manifestation of the prayer now. But in November the 5th, it will come to pass. But until November 5th, we open up our mouths and we give God the best praise we got. Somebody scream.
Woo! All right, more than enough. Please scan in your information because we want to register your attendance here today. Ladies and gentlemen, and this is on your table, the scans are on your table. We promised you that we were going to make history at this convention. And as we bring up Reverend Jackson, and you know I practice all around the world and I have a number of awards, but I can tell you that as we bring up the incomparable, the courageous, the bad to the bone, the tough, the brilliant, the woman of faith from my state of Georgia, my district attorney, who is more than enough. More than enough, District Attorney Fani Willis. We know that she hails from Howard University. HU, you know, from Washington, D.C., from a father who was a civil rights leader, who was a Black Panther, who taught his daughter to be courageous, be strong, never, never let them define you, District Attorney Fani Willis. Our district attorney in the state of Georgia and Fulton County defined the litigation against the former president, Donald Trump. She defined it. Why did she define it? Because the other litigation, even one case that went before the case in Fulton County, would not have happened in the same way, District Attorney Fani Willis, but for your courageous efforts, but for you standing strong, but for you taking that position, but for you doing justice and telling the world that I will do my job for the citizens of Fulton County who elected me. But for you doing that, Black woman that you are, but for you doing that, leader that you are, but for you doing that, woman that you are, and taking that position, the world saw what it was to be that courageous, soldier, and you need to know that you are more than enough for us. So as we bring you up here to share some words to our Rainbow Push Coalition, as chair of the board and on behalf of Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson, on behalf of Dr. Jacqueline Jackson, the Jackson family, Citizenship Education Fund, Push, Excel, and Push, you need to know that we love you. And we're honoring you today with an award because we want you to know that you are more than enough. And that and I remember we were on a panel at the Georgia Bar, and I told you, this is way before you brought that suit, and I told you then that if ever you need, I'm a past president of the National Bar Association, I said there are many people who will volunteer their time to protect you, to surround you, to embrace you. I don't know if you remember that conversation, District Attorney Fani Willis. So today it's coming full circle because we understand as a prosecutor, like our vice president, we understand the scars of a war hero, of a trailblazer, of a freedom fighter that you are, and you have to know that you are more than enough. And we are here to let you know, to support you. So ladies and gentlemen, I want you to rise and show our sister how she is more than enough, and that we love her, and that we stand by her side, and that she has the cloak and the cover, not just of us, but of God, because she is a faith-bearing woman. She believes in God, and she is there with us. And we want to thank you for all that you do. And I'm in ATL, so I know, District Attorney Fani Willis, how magnificent and brilliant that you are. So without further ado, we're going to call you to the stage. And Reverend Jackson, this is the day in history. This is the day in history before the convention that is so special, that has made this conference incredible.
Good afternoon. It's hard when they put you on the agenda after lunch. But I hope that God uses me today and something that I say really touches you and motivates you to keep doing the work that is so important right now of all of us. Let me tell you, today for me it's really a full circle day. And you know, there's two people you shouldn't hand a microphone to. One is a preacher and the other is a lawyer, so I apologize. I am a lawyer and I am the child of a lawyer, and so I'm gonna try to keep it as brief as a lawyer is able to keep it. But when I was thinking about today and just thinking about what I wanted to say, I just thought of how humbled and how amazing it was. I mean, do you know what it's like when Jesse Jackson call your phone? And you're like, is that a prank call? They must be playing with me today. What an honor to just have him know your name and to call your phone and then to call and say, we want to honor you. Honor me. I want to honor you. And so what I want to talk to you today about is this full circle moment. What my life has taught me is that God is the master architect. See, I'm standing in this room both on the shoulders of greatness and in the presence of greatness. We as humans don't really understand how much he's been weaving this puzzle together. So I'm gonna start back in 1971, if that's all right with y'all. Because what I know is in 1971, two great things happened. One was the roots for this historic organization were put into place by Reverend Jesse Jackson. Who would believe that he would have the foresight to start PUSH, People United to Save Humanity? Who would know that he would understand that it was going to be necessary for people like him to bring people together to save And then later, I believe the name was changed to Serve Humanity. That happened in 1971. Now, I know the great Reverend is an Omega. My daddy is a Kappa. So another great thing happened in 1971. My daddy had enough game to convince my mama for a good night, and here I stand. I came in October of 1971. They told me I could keep it 100 today, so I'm trying to keep it 100. So in October of 1971, I also came into this place. See, I don't think that that is a coincidence. I think that that is the weaving of God, but I don't want you to believe that God's architectural design stopped in 1971. It certainly didn't start then, and it didn't stop then. In 1984, some of you all are sitting in this room and don't realize that it was 40 years ago at this time that Reverend Jesse Jackson had the courage to run for president of the United States. Let's talk about what that foundational courage did. It let people know that you did not have to just be a white male to be important in leadership. It gave women the courage to know that they could stand in the roles of leadership. It gave minorities, and I don't just mean African Americans, I mean all kinds of minorities, the realization that we too were part of the American fabric, that we too had a voice, and that we too should be disenfranchised. I'm going to tell you, though, that something bigger happened in 1984, even than him running for president. That was he made Rainbow Coalition a national organization and made sure that people from all over this country came together to do things. Well, on a personal note, I met my sister who's in this room with me today in 1984. And see, we ain't got the same mama and daddy, but I can tell you she is a sister like any sister would be. And this friendship would last for a long time because she has become one of my women warriors. But that also became in 1984, and her place in my life and her place in me being in this room is going to become evident very soon. So God, still being that architect, kept working and kept doing stuff, and you know I'm just hitting a few highlights. In 1996, I graduated from Emory Law School, all excited and full of vigor, ready to solve social problems. Well, she graduated college and got her first job. Guess for who? Rainbow Push Coalition. And so we would have these conversations at night because, quite frankly, I didn't know a lot about them. I didn't really know anything other than it was a name I heard. But she would share with me her experiences of getting people to vote and going into rooms and making sure that they felt like a part of the process. But one of the best things she shared with is that this young African-American girl, that organization made her feel like she had a voice and what she said was important and that she could influence and move the world forward. And so I fell in love with that organization then through her stories. So life doesn't stop there. The importance of this organization is its very purpose is to make sure that all Americans know that they are included in this dream and that there are opportunities. And this organization hasn't been one that just talks the talk, but they have actually walked the walk. For things like housing, you know, it's important for a family to have a mortgage and be able to have fair housing. That is the type of things this organization has fought for. And what about education? Because without it, you can't get very far. I have watched Reverend Jackson time after time advocate for the doors to education being closed because people are priced out. And what about voting? What about making sure that all Americans know that their vote is important and that it counts, and fighting to get people registered to vote? So you have to know that history to understand just how honored I was when I received that call. Because, see, you got folks right now, they want to erase Black history and American history. They don't want you to pay attention to what our past has been, but I know what my history has been. I know whose shoulders I walk on. I know who has fought for me and for my children and my children's children. So I was thrilled to get that call. And I'm thrilled to be in this room with great women that are coming together to work in all different capacities as foot soldiers and activists, as business and political leaders, as educators and thought leaders, to come together to share the purpose to level educational opportunities for all Americans. It is inspiring to me to see women living the lives. I invite you here today to walk the halls and look at the picture ending, but to come into this building to women to discuss how we can move this nation forward, because you know it's folks trying to roll this clock back. They want to make things great again. Things wasn't so great. But we as women are coming together to make sure that everybody has equality and that the clocks do not get rolled back for our physical health, our mental health, and certainly they don't know about these lionesses for their children. In recent days, we have gone backwards in ways that are frightening. But see, you need to come together today to be discouraged, to be encouraged that the threats to our freedoms are not going to come to pass. Because women are coming together all across this country to make sure that we get out and have the right people fighting for us. See, but we have to go back. So many African Americans of my generation to run for justice. He understood we need a movement that encompasses all people of all different ethnicities. You a great debt. 1 years, and I want you to know, folks said you crazy. You can't win that race, and I don't know what you're doing. But I trusted God's plan for my life, and I won that race. That as I took that position, that it was going to be challenging. I didn't know it was going to be this challenging. But we took over an office with a massive backlog, with a broken staff, where crime was rising dramatically. But I have a really good father. They talk about Black men, and I always wonder who they're talking about, because my examples of Black men are men of greatness. And so if it's okay with you, I'm going to give honor to my father, John Clifford Floyd III. He was a single father. He was a civil rights activist, and he was a defense lawyer. And so many of you all do not know, but maybe you've had the challenge of being a single parent. On Saturdays, people would get arrested on Friday nights. So on Saturday mornings, as a new young lawyer, he would go to court to pick up clients. He would take me with him because he didn't have a babysitter. I would sit there and I would watch him fight for his clients. And I tell him now, sometimes it might have been a little child abuse. I would put together his criminal files to make sure that he was prepared. So I'm practicing law since about 8, y'all. But what he taught me was, even though those people were at their lowest and that they were charged with a crime, that each of them had a right to be treated with dignity. He taught me through his work ethic how important working hard was. And so I can honestly tell you, there's nothing I ever wanted to be but a lawyer to fight for my community. Dad taught me 2 important lessons. One was, you must work hard. The other was, no matter who someone is or what their background is or what circumstances they find themselves in, they are entitled to dignity. He taught me that the American dream truly lived is that everyone is accountable to the law. No one is beneath the protection of the law, and no one is above it. When I took office, I had no idea that it would be controversial to tell the public, as long as I stand here, anyone who comes into my count, if they violate the law, they will be held accountable. Sounds to me like Lady Justice is blind. I thought that was what America was built on. But that has upset a lot of people. It means that we're fighting parts of our community that we are not worthy. See, I tell people that I am unapologetic of putting gangsters who want to commit violence in my community in jail. I'm unapologetic about it. But I'm also unapologetic about using the resources of my office to make sure that children can see something different and have different programming so that the school system actually gives them what they deserve so they can be part of the American dream. I do not accept that your area code or your zip code should determine the trajectory for your life. And so that is why when I got the call from Push, I knew that the values of all were aligned with this organization, and it was such an honor to receive credence and being applauded by such honorable people. So I want to remind you of something that you've heard many, many times before. Back in 1968, before my daddy was able to convince my mama he was the right one, before. Martin Luther King Jr. made a statement that we hear, but I want you to really think about. He said, we people should overcome because the arc of the moral universe is long, but it always bends towards justice. God, that master architect, he's still crafting, he's still working. He cannot give up. He's using just people. Some of y'all know he's using prosecutors and former prosecutors to change the world. Oh, y'all missed that. He's using civil rights activists and educators and leaders. Most importantly, he's using God-fearing people to make sure that America gives up its promise for everyone. And America, that includes women. So what I want to leave you with today is America is already great. But with the inclusion of all of us, it is becoming greater. As diverse, intelligent women rise into leadership and use their talents to make sure our country succeeds. One city, one county, one state, and one country at a time. In my county, under my leadership, we have watched crime decrease. But we have not done this just as me in a vacuum as the district attorney. We have done this working with our law enforcement partners. We have done this working with preachers. We have done this working with our rights activists. We have done this working with our educators and our parents and our children. We have done this as a group project. So I have a message for all of them and you. We ain't going backwards. We're going forward. There are no agains. There are only futures. We have learned from our future.